Welcome back to my webinar series. Last time I believe we talked about ghosting. So I wanted to expand upon that. I wanted to give you a clearer picture of each step that can guide you to prevent that ghosting. And I thought the best way to break it down would be to talk about it in a clear 3 phone call format. So let's pretend in a perfect world it takes 3 phone calls from a recruiter to hire a candidate through the hiring process. So we're going to pretend like we're in that perfect world. Of course, we know that's rarely the case, but let's break it down. And I'm sure you can dance it into whatever dance you have, whatever way works for you through this 3-step process. Consider it your opening essay format. So let's start with the initial call. There are a lot of things in the initial call you can do that will get you started on a path to not being ghosted. And it kind of starts with scripted moments of trust. You really need to build a template for yourself of different action items along the way that will allow you to prevent a lot of the ghosting that happens throughout the process with a candidate. The hiring process is an art form, just like any other art form, that requires that you figure out what colors work with what and what designs work with what. So one of the first steps that you want to do on that initial call is ask the candidate lots of questions. These questions are going to be imperative, and I talked about this last time. It allows you many things. It allows you to understand location, personal needs, understand the candidate, and it develops a relationship. So, number one, I would start with asking lots of questions. And because of that, you'll be able to find out where they live, what their reasoning is, if they're really good for this job, if they have the right motivation. And of course, I've talked about before, behavior-based interviews, a good way to start if you don't have your own process. On the types of questions you can ask to really get down to the psychology of this. I went to school. My college degree is in psychology and history because I love people and I wanted to understand them better. And through my degrees and the 15 years in the recruiting world and human resources, I found that these type of questions, building your process off of these interview-based questions, really will help find out way more about the candidate than you would realize from just looking at it. And then, of course, I always try to find one personal thing. And this takes a bit of an art form, and you'll get better at it over time. But just find something you can connect them to that's like your click moment, the light bulb moment. Like, oh, this is Renee, and Renee has 3 kids, and they all go to 3 schools. So she's dealt with each school, and she's always very busy, but she's got this free time in the middle of the day. And because of that, I know Renee's world a little bit better. And by finding out that one personal thing, it helps them stand out. And if they can stand out, you'll remember them. If you remember them, they'll remember you. Two-way street. I talked about this last time. This is my little trick, and I don't know, maybe you won't be able to do it, but laughter. If we can laugh one time during that first phone call, just once, I promise you that there's a relationship starting already right there. Either they make me laugh or I make them laugh. Laughter is a good, conducive, elastic thing you can play with in recruiting. And it just shows that you're smiling and you're happy, and people like smiley, happy people. So, and then lastly, on that first call, I talked about this last time, but I want to reiterate this: no assumptions. If you assume anything before that phone call or during that phone call, you're gonna lose out on some of the best candidates in the world, and they're not going to develop a relationship with you, and they're going to ghost you after that initial call. So let's say they haven't ghosted you yet. They're interested in the job. You finished the initial call, right? So now you got to follow up. And this comes with the follow-ups I say always set for yourself. I live by follow-ups. I'd say I spend an hour a day going through my follow-ups every single day to make sure I didn't miss anything for my candidates. Because the moment you miss something, there's the trust. Anybody who's a parent knows you could have a kid, if it matters to them, promise them something 6 months from now, and they're going to remember to ask you 6 months from now. Are they going to get that? And if you don't, then you've broken that trust. It's the same thing with the relationship with the candidate, you in the hiring process. There's a trust that has to be developed. So clear follow-ups. So your second call should be your follow-up. And it can sometimes be initiated because you have to follow up because it's somewhere in the process, or you can initiate it because you feel like there's something you need to do. But because of this is where I think the icing on the cake lands. is I hold my candidates accountable because I hold myself accountable. This is the beautiful thing about setting follow-ups, getting to know your candidate, loving what you do that I talked about first time, that allows you to hold them to their word. Call them out. I do it because I expect them to call me out. There has to be clear repercussions, and you have to create a standard with consequences in this follow-up call. Here's what I need from you. You're the one looking for work. Here's what I've done for you. I took the time to get to know you. I set the follow-up. I reached out to you. I've set the standard here. You must reach it. Some people think it's kind of harsh, but I think it's just a foundation. It's a foundation for the relationship. And people will treat it with more respect if you treat it with more respect. If something is expensive, a lot of times people will buy it because, well, if it's expensive, it must be worth it. Well, if they have to be held accountable, if the candidates have to deal with the repercussions, if the hiring process creates a standard of consequence, then everyone's going to do their job, and ghosting will be something they feel there's a consequence for. And by building that world, that vacuum where there's consequences for everything we do, ghosting becomes part of that. And then they don't ghost you. And then, of course, I love to bring up that personal thing right off the bat when that follow-up call, so it doesn't feel so this, and this, and you must do what you need to do. It's a follow-up of, hey, how are you doing? I talked a little bit about this before with when I was training some recruiters, that's really important. And I like to always bring it up because that personal thing is going to connect you. That's where the trust is built. So now you've got them through this whole process. An offer is going to be made. What can you do to prevent the ghosting at the end, at the follow through, at the last part? Well, this is ironic because now, as a recruiter and as a client, we have to have a relationship that's on behalf of the candidate. So if you're a recruiter who has a client, you need to build your relationship with that client on behalf of the candidate. That way, if the candidate misses something and you trust that candidate, then you can reach out to that client and give that person a second chance. Or if there's certain amenities that have to be, maybe they live out of town and they need an online interview. The client that likes you and trusts you will give them that, and we'll make those adjustments for you. So the first thing you can do is build a relationship with your clients. Make sure the person hiring respects you, because then if they respect you, then they're going to transition. That's going to transfer through you. That respect for the candidate is going to transfer through you. And then, of course, when they get the offer, I set my follow-ups even after it's out of my hands. Even after the client I'm working for says you don't have to follow up with them afterwards, I set a follow-up and I reach out and I text every candidate that has text to opt in. And some candidates opt out of texting, but anybody who has text opt in, I text them and say, congratulations. I know you're going to do a great job. And I say why I think they're going to do a great job. I don't just say, good job, nice job. I congratulate them. I say, because of this, I know you're going to do really well. Couple side notes through the whole process that I think everyone needs to remember is you got to own up to your mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I've made lots of mistakes while recruiting. It's human. Owning up to those, fixing them, and not trying to hide them shows you're human. Candidates will treat you like you're human if you come off human. If you don't, the candidate's going to treat you like a voice over a phone, somebody that they don't care about. So, and remind them they can reach out anytime. I constantly end every call with, and understand you can text me, email me, or give me a call anytime, and I'll follow up with you within 24 hours. I'm here for you. I'm your go-to guy. So with these steps through your phone calls, you can prevent, I'd say it's 70, 80% of ghosting. I have. It's worked for me. So I hope this worked for you. And if you don't do anything else, remember to keep it real with them, and they'll keep it real with you. Make it a two-way street. That's that relationship bond and that trust that we love. Thanks.